mine. I take an hour to talk with them, listen to their questions, and answer them. Now, when you listen and you do these telephone town halls, it's pretty simple. They talk about jobs, a strong economy, a strong defense. But in this particular case, I was doing it about Ridgecrest, and it was about disaster assistance. Just had a multiple of earthquakes, some even of yesterday that we've been through. And they were looking to see where their government would be. There was a military base there too, see if we'd be able to rebuild it. But when I answered questions about what was going on in the House for the last week, talked about an impeachment bill coming up, a contempt, and anything else that this new socialist Democrat majority wanted to do to go after this administration. What's interesting is I didn't turn to the Republicans to see if a question, I actually found a question that I agreed with that came from a chief of staff from a Democratic member that challenged anyone to name one thing that the Democrats have done to help the voters around the issues around the kitchen table of even that telephone town hall that night. And I agree with him. There's not one that I've found. I've watched just in the last week, they've taken a national defense authorization bill that for the last 58 years had been bipartisan. In the Senate, 86 votes, still bipartisan. And they changed the history of this body and made it partisan. I watched really with a really sad view of what happened this week. A debate on a floor when the Speaker of the House has a responsibility to uphold the rules of this House. She broke the rules, but she felt the responsibility that she held above all of it. She had her own members vote to hold her different than anyone else when they broke the rules, that she could come back and still speak, and that her words could stay in. So we learned in a body that we believe in the rule of law, that it's equal, that it's not equal. This House has changed a lot in a short amount of time, but also the Democratic Party has changed a great deal and become a socialist Democratic Party. The taxpayer funding of campaigns, the guaranteed government income for those who don't want to work but are able to work, to try to provide them an income, and making it illegal to have private health insurance taken away from 180 million Americans. We can do better. We should be doing more. And I will make this promise that on this side of the aisle, we'll work with anybody who wants to work on issues around the kitchen table and put aside their own personal differences because they're upset about an outcome to an election. Let's open it up for questions. Yes, ma'am?
McCarthy, you said a short time ago that the chants of send her back have no place in this country. So why is it a problem when people chant it, but not when the president tweets it?
The president clarified very clearly that he did not tell somebody. He talked about the love of this country.
No, he said they should.
No, he clarified inside his tweet, if you want to read the clarification of his tweet, he talked about the love of this country and said, if you don't love this country, you can leave. That's a fundamental difference. And that's what the president is talking about. This is an issue about ideology. This is an issue that when you talk about one of these individuals who introduced a bill in support of boycott, divestiture, and sanctions against Israel. In this bill that she introduced, it even talks about the boycott when it came to Nazis in Germany. This is the differences that we have. This is what this debate and fight is about.
You really think these lawmakers don't love their country?
I didn't say they didn't love their country. They have all the rights of their country at the same point. The president did not name the individual. He said, if you do not like this country, you can leave. But the president talked about building on this economy, making it stronger. There's a clear difference in this. And you watched, I didn't get to see the rally, but I saw a clip. The president didn't join in any chant like that. And if you're going to claim the president having a battle over a socialist issue and the socialist Democrats, that's one that he has taken up even in the State of the Union. He promised that this country will never have socialism here, and that's why he's fighting so hard. And I think it's really wrong that you would even challenge this president when you look at the First Lady is foreign born as well. So I think the question is out of base. Yes?
last night, as we were hearing these chants, the president just stood there. He didn't intervene.
The president moved
didn't
on with his
pause.
speech.
But if there is no place for these
president
chants, as you
take-
said, does the president have a responsibility to cut this out?
For those who were at the event, and I was not, I didn't see it, but I did talk to somebody there, he said it was a small group off to the side. What the president did, the president did not join in, the president moved on. He moved on about a speech about a country and the things that are building and right. That's what the president did. Has it become so far that you want to dislike the president so much you're going to accuse him of trying to do something he did not do? From the places that he moved on in the speech, he never joined in it, and you want to try to hold him accountable for what something in a big audience? Are you going to hold him accountable too for whatever any protesters or something else does it? I think that's an unfair position.
So he has no responsibility to turn to his supporters and say, that's not fair.
What he
there's no
did in
place
his
for that."
responsibility was right. He moved on to make them stop in the process. That's exactly what the president did, and the president talked about the greatness of this country. Yes.
Two questions on two different topics.
Sure.
The first one is the debt ceiling. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin said that he spoke with you, I think, yesterday. And
I spoke
that
with him again
the-
today, too.
And today as well, okay. He said that you guys have an agreement on a 2-year debt ceiling increase, top line numbers for 2 years, and the need for offsets. Is that where you see this agreement headed? And then the second question is on Libra. You've been vocal about your concerns around some of the social media platforms. Do you agree with Democrats that this cryptocurrency needs to be stopped?
All right. Two questions. Let me take your first question first. Yes, I've been talking quite often with the Secretary of Treasury, and we're working towards getting an agreement that we can move through on our appropriation bills from the caps, but we also have to deal with the debt ceiling that is coming up rather quickly, could actually hit on the first week we come back in September, so we don't want to put that in doubt in any shape or form. Nothing's fully agreed to till everything's fully agreed to, but one of the concepts is to have a debt ceiling that goes for 2.5 years. That would be appropriate. Well, that's what we're talking about, but there's no agreement. The other point that you'd have to have that we should not leave here without doing something on the debt ceiling. If that even means 30 days, should not come in doubt about the debt ceiling in any shape or form. Your second question was about Libra, Facebook and others. I'm very clear. I support crypto and Bitcoin. I support innovation. But I have real concerns about Libra because it's not decentralized. I like blockchain. I think the government should use blockchains. It gives you security. One of my greatest concerns is when it comes to privacy, but this is a fundamental difference in a philosophy of the way we look at something. And let me give you an example. I watched in the banking crisis, the Democrats' proposal was Dodd-Frank. Well, what it did, it took away a lot of community banks' opportunity for there. When I look at how they're dealing with tech companies, they want to either break them up or make them utilities. Two things happen. It does nothing to protect our privacy, and it takes away innovation. I watched the chair of the financial services introduce a bill to deny Libra to even go forward before they even had a hearing. That's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. I believe in innovation, but I also believe that we should have a hearing on it, and maybe we need to put frameworks around it. But what I'm most concerned about is privacy. To me, our privacy when it's online, if there is something offering you something for free on the internet, you are not the client, you are the product. And your product is you and your information that they're selling to a third party and others. I wrote a New York Times editorial this week. I started the phrase with a friend of mine up in Silicon Valley. We had this discussion. He raised this issue with me. He said, what if the Postal Service offered mail for free? That you can mail your letters for free, but when you mailed your letters for free, the government got to read your letters. But it'd be okay because we'd find out you wanted to go on a vacation and we'd send you advertisements for that. Or if your kids needed new clothes, we'd send you advertisements for that as well. People would be concerned, right? Well, that's exactly how Gmail started. Gmail claims today that they don't no longer read your emails, but they allow third parties to pay them to read your emails. The privacy, to me, is like private property. I should know when I go on a site what they're able to get and know about me. It is my property. I should be able to move it if I want to go to another platform, and I should be able to delete it. But the one thing I'm not going to do is what the chairwoman of financial services did, to put her head in the sand and make sure we don't have innovation. You cannot ignore technology and innovation. But what you can do is make sure there's safeguards around it that protect the privacy of the individuals who are going to use it. How many of you have ever read the terms before you sign up onto a site? You're giving away so many rights that you've never even read through. Shouldn't we, as a federal government, lay out in clear language what somebody can take? But if it's our private property, again, you should be able to move it, you should be able to delete it, and if they monetize it, you should be able to get a piece of that money as well. That's where I stand. Yes.
Could you speak to the concerns you may have about what can happen when at a rally like we saw for the president last night, if a group of supporters begins a chant, and if that becomes sort of the catchphrase of his new campaign, much like Lock Her Up was in 2016, what concerns or dangers do you think there could be of setting a tone among Republican voters that is viewed by many people as racist, or even potentially putting some harm or potential harm to these four congresswomen if people misuse that sentiment?
Let me be very clear to everyone who's elected. I've watched language used against ICE individuals who work for the federal government. I watched last weekend a storm upon a building inside America and take down an American flag to raise a flag of another country. Was that driven by anything else than elected officials saying certain things? I watched individuals talk about and introduce bills about boycotting Israel and empowering something that nowhere in this body has gone before. Again, in the Senate, an anti-BDS bill passed with what, 77 votes? Chuck Schumer voted for that. But in this new Socialist Democratic Party that is the majority, introduced a bill that is the opposite, an opposite of what the fundamental cores of America believes to our greatest ally and only democracy inside the Middle East, Israel. That yes, you could boycott them, you could divest, and you could sanction them. That's what their message is about. That creates a problem in this country. They have the freedom of speech, but and then if you go to facilities and you talk about something that did not happen, that creates a problem as well. Or Antifa, that will go out, beat an individual up based upon their philosophy and their belief, and then won't stand up against it. I watched the president, when a chant happened, move on to make sure that nothing did happen. But I watched others in this body encourage something and never denounce it. That's the difference. And that's when you think about the ideology, philosophy of what we have here, it's really just in the House. It is this new movement in this Socialist Democratic Party. They have overtaken their party. More than half of them have signed on to deny 180 million Americans their right to health care that they currently have. Or now they fundamentally believe that they want to take $4,000 from individuals and put it directly into their campaigns to run the ads of what they believe. That's what the battle is about. Don't mistake anything else. This is about the ideology of America, socialism versus freedom. And yes, it is a big fight. And I would believe that everybody in that body should stand up against what Antifa is doing, or stand up against anybody that tries to go after ICE agents and takes down an American flag to raise a flag of another country on the soil of America. I don't think that should have to be debated. But unfortunately, it does today. And that's what's causing a lot of these problems. So everybody should take a little different position. And if we're going to run and pass bills in the body of this House that believes in the rule of law, everybody should be equal. Not the person in charge of what's supposed to stand up to these laws to make the rules different for herself, as Nancy Pelosi did this week. What she said on the floor, she had her words taken down. But she didn't come back to the floor. She did not apologize. She did not withdraw her words. But when the parliamentarian had to make the decision, how many Democrats did they have to go through before a person would get up and stand up for what the rule actually says? The parliamentarian told them, nonpartisan. They would not do it. They had talk within their own caucus to go against what the parliamentarian ruled. Never heard of in this body. And then when they made that decision, they said, let's change the rules for the Speaker of the House. She should be different than everybody else. No, in this great country, everyone is equal. And when it comes to the question of an individual becoming an American, if you walk in my office, you will see on my wall the papers of my grandfather when he came into Ellis Island. If you follow me in my district, I'll go to naturalization services. When they give me an opportunity to talk, and individuals raise that hand, you know what I tell them? At this moment, George Washington became your founding father. Abraham Lincoln was your liberator. Martin Luther King spoke of your dreams. And the flag that flies on the moon is your flag. You have as much freedom and rights as I do, but you also have the same responsibility. And in that responsibility is about a country that is exceptional, that everyone is created equal. And when I watched this last week, a transformation of this House, that people are not held to the same account as others, when I watched a bill get introduced that talked about BDS against Israel, the complete opposite of where both parties have ever been, that's a clear sign that there is no longer a Democratic Party in the House of Representatives. It's only on the Senate side. This is a socialist Democratic Party, and this is what the fight's about, and this is what the fight will continue to be about.